in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection. Okay, and that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This is someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. I'm your host, Amanda Cisco, and I'm here with Virginia. How are you today?
I'm good.
So, Virginia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have my children that I'm fighting for in DCS custody right now. I've been fighting for over 2 years, and I've completely complied with the case plan. I've done all the services, I've done classes, and it's just not good enough for them, you know? And I feel like they don't take the time to see the work that I'm doing, and when they write a review for the judge, they slap whatever they want on it and hand it over to the judge. And that's what happened this last time at the court. And I asked my caseworker why she did that, and she said it wasn't her, it was her supervisor. But still, there was lies being told and the truth wasn't out there. And I don't know what to do anymore with them. You know, I've done everything I can, and now they're trying to sever my rights to my children. And nobody cares, you know? It's like, it's just another case to them.
So when did this happen? When did they switch to severance?
This maybe, I think, in August.
And was there anything in specific that triggered that?
They said the case has been going on for almost 2 years.
Now, what brought them into your life?
They're saying domestic violence, but you know, when they actually took my children physically, I didn't have nowhere to live, you know, and I was staying at my mom's house, and they came and took them from me and my mom, and the kid's dad at the time wasn't even around. He was incarcerated.
Okay. And was this as a result of the domestic violence incident?
No, we were going through like a hard time. You know, we came homeless, so I started staying with my mom. But I've had a place since then. I've had my own place. I have my own job. I have everything for the kids. I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you know, I've bettered everything, my life, everything I can do. I've turned it into a positive, you know. And I feel like they don't see that. Like, they just keep using domestic violence against me. Like, you know, I've done classes. I've done everything I can do to show them, you know, but it's not good enough for them.
So what are you hoping to accomplish with your case?
I want my kids home. I don't think that they're
Absolutely.
showing the judge everything I'm doing. They're just, you know, they're not showing him everything. And I don't think that's fair. And I have a trial coming up and I don't know what to expect at the trial.
Right. Now, what is your relationship with the judge over the course of this case? You said it's been going on for a couple of years.
It's been going on. You know, I think he's fair. Like, for me, what I get out of him, like, I think that he's trying to give me a chance, but I also think that they're not showing him everything that's happened. Like, my kids were abused in the foster system, and they just swept that under the rug, you know? I don't even know if they approached that to the judge. And as soon as that happened, they moved him out of the foster system with family, you know? And I was the one who like shined light on what was going on, and they were like, "Oh, but if that were to happen with me in my care, my kids would have been taken from me." You know what I mean? I would have been in jail, all kinds of. My kids were never hurt with me in my care, you know. And I've made mistakes, and I'm not perfect, but I've bettered myself, you know. And they don't see that, and they're just like, "Oh, well, we have concerns." I'm like, "Well, how do you show someone that you're changing your lives if they're not around to see it?" You know, I've completed. My parent aide is the one that's with me around the kids all the time, and she's the one who's saying reunification, but they don't want to listen to her, you know?
Unfortunately, that is the case a lot of the times. And, you know, with a lot of these cases, you have to accept the fact that somebody's opinion is, you know, deemed more important in court than our own civil liberties. And it's really disgusting. So you said that you got them with a relative.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
It took a long time to do that. It took about a year. DCS didn't want to give them with family. They wanted them in a foster home. And I kept telling them something was going on with my children. I found out that the foster mother was giving my kids sleeping medicine to make them go to sleep. And they're young, they're babies. And every time they would come to a visit, my kids would sleep through the 4-hour sleep. I have pictures and videos of proof. And I said, something's going on with my kids. And then I found out she was giving them all sleeping medicine. And nobody did nothing about that. You know, it's just, and then they're like, oh yeah, the kids were a little bit anxious and, you know, they didn't want to be at the foster place. I'm like, well, of course, you know, they're strangers. Right. And my kids were scared. They were skinny, you know, they were losing weight. And they were terrified. And DCS is like, oh, they're okay. You need to stop calling and making reports. And then one day at a visit, my son came with his whole ear bruised inside and out. And there was no explanation, you know. And I made a police report. I have the pictures. And that's when they moved him with a family member. After weeks of fighting, when I found out he was bruised up, and there was still no answer, you know. He was 3 years old at the time, and he's autistic. And there was still, you know, no answers. And they just throw him in taxi cabs and send him off with random strangers. You know, it's sad. The system it's not right. You know, the kids go through more trauma
in these environments than they would. A child is 4 times more likely to be physically, emotionally, or sexually abused in a foster home than they are with their own actually abusive families. There was a study on that. And this was tested on abusive families. The abuse is 4 times worse in foster care than with an actual abuser.
Yeah, my kids were okay with me. They were never abused, you know what I mean? And then as soon as they went with the foster people, they were scared and traumatized and losing weight. And I'm just like, what's going on? You know, and I felt like they didn't care. Like, it was just, oh, okay, it's something we have to go through. Like, it's sad, you know? And to this day, like, you know, my kids keep getting exposed to strangers, to me, because that's what it is. They're strangers. Everybody that they come into my kids' lives, like a new case aide, a new parent aide, you know, we just got used to my parent aide. She's real nice. And now they're trying to give me someone else, you know. It's not fair for my kids, because it defeats the purpose of telling your kids not to go get in the car with strangers, but yet they're bringing random taxis all the time to come pick up your kids.
So why are they bringing these taxis? Tell us more about that.
They were doing that for a long time. They just it's an actual taxi companies that come pick up the kids. Like, I don't even think these people are certified in CPR around children. They're just like random yellow taxis that come pick up the kids.
For what purpose?
To send them to visits back and forth.
Because the foster parents can't do that?
Nope. That's what they said. I'm like, why are my kids? And it's always, you know, a different taxi cab person. And the car smells like cigarettes or something. They don't have the right car seats. The kids are being exposed to strangers. They don't see that part. That's a lot to go through as a child.
That is really
Mhm.
very traumatic. I'm really sorry. This is the first time that I've heard of anything like this on a case.
No, they do that. They do that a lot out here. It's in Arizona.
Is that not child endangerment?
Yeah, and I freak out. I'm like, who are these people taking my kids in taxis? Are they certified? Are they, even if they are certified, I don't know them.
No.
And they're like, oh, don't worry, they're this, but yet they're telling me I don't know my kids' needs, and I do all these classes and get certificates. Why don't those people have to do the same thing?
That is a very good point. That's a very valid point. And perhaps it's something that we can use to change the legislature in the future at some point. But no, unfortunately, there are just so many cases that are like this. And now this trial coming up, when do you go back to court?
March 2nd and March 3rd.
Okay, so in about a month.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a month ago, but we were exposed to COVID.
Okay.
So they postponed it another 30 days. And I'm like, I don't know what to expect. My lawyer is telling me that possibly, I've done everything I can do, so she doesn't really know what's going to happen,
Now, are you working with a court-appointed attorney or a private lawyer?
I had a private lawyer, but I didn't think I needed the private lawyer anymore because, what the crazy thing is, when I had the private lawyer, DCS was like, oh, you're doing a good job, and then as soon as I stopped having the private lawyer, they went to severance right away. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything.
That is really interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
I've noticed in my own experience, a lot of these court-appointed attorneys or, judges that seem to be like on the middle ground are really just like players on the same team, but different places on the board is kind of the analogy that I use for it. Oh, please.
I don't know.
Bear with me.
I don't know because I don't know the system. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking, hey, it's my lawyer, so they're gotta fight for me.
Right.
I honestly, Amanda, everything is up in God's hands, and that's who I've turned to during this whole time is God. Because I'm not perfect, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I feel like this is like an eye opener in my life. Just because before all this happened, I didn't have a close relationship with God, and I feel like everything that I'm going through, God is my strength, because if not, I don't know where I'd be, because God knows how much I love my children, and that I think that's how He was opening my eyes. But still, I want my kids home. You know what I mean? Like, I want my kids home, and they don't deserve to go through what they're going through. And my son's always asking me, Mom, when am I coming home with you? And he doesn't want to leave the visits. He wants to stay here with me. And I don't know, it's in God's hands. And that's why I pray a lot for the kids.
That's really good that you do that. I can understand from personal experience how difficult that is. And yeah, I haven't seen or had any contact with my kids in probably closer to a year now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and cases can take that direction sometimes, but that's why it's really important to have a strategy with your attorney. Now, do you and your attorney ever sit down and talk about strategies for the upcoming court cases?
Oh, yes. We were supposed to like a week ago, but we were exposed to COVID. So
Okay.
I have a meeting next week with her.
Okay. And that's great. Now, do you guys know like kind of what angle you guys are going to take on the case?
She said that I've done everything I could do too. She doesn't know what more to ask to do. I'm just continuing my classes. At this point, I feel like DCS has made up their mind, like, okay, we're gonna keep your kids, but it's up to the judge at the end, So I think that if I present all my evidence to the judge that I have, because I keep everything. I keep my emails. I have things from the beginning of the case 2 years ago. I have everything. So I think the case plan. I'm sorry, my phone.
Oh, you're okay. We'll just give her a couple of seconds, guys.
Sorry, my phone. I apologize.
You're okay.
Okay.
You were saying before about the kids.
Yeah, but my case plan, I've completed everything and I feel like it's not good enough for them. Whatever you do is not good enough, but whatever they think that they know the best interest for the children and they really don't, they don't. That's
And
like
the problem that I have with that is that in a court of law, you have to prove beyond a preponderance of evidence. You have to have enough evidence to prove that, in fact, there really wasn't excuse me, I can never say the word, exigent circumstance to take the kids in the first place. You have to prove that that parent is unfit to be in that child's life. Like, removal is supposed to be the last possible alternative for these cases, when often so many of these cases, it's the first thing that they choose to do.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's the first thing
more rights in criminal court for sexually abusing a child, for example, than they do in a family court, where a lot of the
that's
time
true.
these parents didn't do anything wrong.
That's true. They take the kids first and then they'll ask questions later.
Exactly.
And it's sad because when it's on the other side, tables are turned. If something happens to the kids in their care, they don't want no one to know about it. They want hush hush,
Exactly.
And so I don't understand that part, because they're supposed to be Department of Child Safety no matter where the children are at. But it's not the Department of Child Safety. It's the Department of Child Safety only when they're with the parents, when with the parents are the ones that love the kids, and it's like they do whatever they can in their power because they won't have a job if they don't got no kids to take. They got to keep their paycheck rotating, and they need to figure out what to do. Like, okay, we're going to take these kids. It's the kids that they take that the parents are going to fight for them, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones keeping their jobs alive, because we're doing all the services, we're doing all the things, so I think that's what it is too. I feel like.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand where you're coming from, and you have some very valid points. I personally believe that there's something, unfortunately, a lot more sinister underneath everything that's going on. But, the walls are slowly breaking down little by little. Unfortunately, a lot of the politicians that go to take action against these organizations, a lot of these politicians and attorneys, they end up dead. I actually, I should have covered this in my newsroom show earlier today, but there was, so I have a client of mine through my firm, and we were just kind of talking about CPS one day. And there was this woman who worked in the medical industry, but she was like pretty high up there, where she like had a lot of influence on like how, much the social workers in the hospital could come in and do things with the patients that they had. And it got to the point where like she noticed that there was like a pattern, and she tried to like kind of blow the whistle on it and say like, hey, this isn't really right. And sooner or later, somebody had started following her. And it got to the point where like she was telling her colleagues, her family, her friends, and like everybody was kind of like, oh no, it's fine. So she actually ended up putting a note in her wall saying like, hey, if I'm found dead, like I did not commit suicide, I'm of sound mind, this is what I'm doing right now, this is when this started happening. And like they didn't know that she put that in her wall. And lo and behold, like a couple of weeks later, like 3 weeks later, I think, they found her dead in her apartment, and they tried to frame it as a suicide.
Oh my God. Well, God sees everything. So nobody got away with
trafficking kids out of a hospital. And she tried
to
God. Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh
yeah.
My God.
Our kids need us. Our children need us. There's a reason that this is happening to families who didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. And then when I do, you know what, Amanda, when I do own up to my mistakes of why my children are in the care of DCS, they don't take that as a like, oh, hey, you know what, she's owning up to her mistakes, because I'm not perfect, I'm not perfect at all, I've had my moments. Nobody's perfect, but I don't know what else to say. Everyone makes mistakes, but it's not enough for me not to have my children,
No, it's really not. It's not.
The way this world is, it's not leading to anything good,
So I was actually our shows, we had some social workers on here for a brief period of time, and we actually had to let them go because it was just the contradictory statements that, like they would introduce themselves as one person one day and then as a completely different person the next day. I mean, it was insane. And I remember, like, I had to jump on the show at one point because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And so I get on the show and I was like, she was just telling him, some of her personal experiences. And I said, okay, well, from this story, it seems to me that, like, your opinion over somebody is, grounds to take their kids away. But, like, have you ever considered, like our civil rights, our Bill of Rights, our Constitution? And basically, like, her excuse was, well, I just didn't feel like she handled the situation the right way, and I have the authority to do this and this, so that's what I did. And I was like, okay, so your opinion is more important than, like, actual law? Is that what you're saying? And she was like, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is. That's
These people really believe in their head that they're untouchable. Like, they actually believe that, like, the law can't persecute them and they can just do whatever they want to these families.
Well, that's what's going on. They basically right now that's what they're doing. But
something
it's
has
just
to be done.
I don't think anything's gonna be done. You know what I mean? There's things that could be done in motion, but it's too much to do. You know what I mean? It's only like if you're going through it, all you can do is fight for your kids at the time. Because if someone tries to go and take a big thing like that down, like it's almost impossible.
It almost is, but don't give these people the power that they don't have. That's another important thing.
God sees everything, and they're not going to get away. You know what I mean? Where everybody's going to have their moment. I'm going to have my moment. We're all going to have our moment where we're going to be judged accordingly to our deeds on this earth. And so everybody has the time to please and do what they want right now, but clock is ticking.
It absolutely is. That's right. Well, let's hope that we make some progress.
Yeah. I'm just hoping to get my kids home. It's not easy. It's not this process. I can honestly say it can make someone go crazy. I can honestly say through all this process, with the classes, with the things, with the visits. First, I was having them in a little office, in a little room. It's not right how they treat us. And then someone's looking at me through a window with my kids. It feels like we're in a cage being watched.
Yeah, it is. It is quite like that.
It is, and that's how it is at the office, and it's too much. It's crazy.
I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that. And yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality that our families have to face at this point. Now, have you had any kind of, like, have they ordered any psychological evaluations on you? Because that's something that they do a lot with these parents.
I've done that in the beginning of the case, and then they try to use that against me too, because they put it inside the thing that I have some schizophrenia or something. And I'm like, okay, they went through the whole evaluation and took out some things of it and put it inside of, like, their review or whatever it's called. And they use, like, traits of something they've put in there. But I'm like, because I want my kids home, I'm crazy,
Disgusting. I'm so sorry. Sounds like you have a fur baby over there. What kind?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay. You met my fur baby earlier.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, my dog. She's always barking. But yeah, see, they try to, I feel like anything they do, like if they do any tests or psych eval, like they're like, okay, well, we're going to take all the bad stuff. We're going to use it against her, but they won't see all the good that I've done.
They never acknowledge the good, do they?
No, they don't. The certificates, everything I've done, it just like, it's nothing to them, and I that's all I want from them too, is for them to acknowledge and say, hey, you know what, you fought a good fight, you've done good, here's your kids back. But they won't do that.
No, and unfortunately, it is very much a case-by-case basis. There are so many different deciding factors in each of these cases that could just make it take a turn in any direction at any time. And often, like, they're so complicated. There's so much of a backstory. It's, I wish there was, like, an easier answer to help each of these families navigate through it. But, it's not that simple. And that's why it's always really important to be on the same page as your attorney. Yeah. And I hate to say it, but there could be a reason why CPS switched up their game when they realized you weren't with your private attorney anymore.
I don't know. It's just, I don't really know how they work, but I've kind of seen how they work, going through the system. But I do have my parent allies with me now. I have 2 of them.
Okay. Now, where did you find the parent allies from?
I've got them through one of the services I go through,
Okay.
With me.
So there are people who come to court with you for emotional support?
Yes. Yes.
That's always really good to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, because they invite me to other groups with parents that are going through the same thing, and we kind of we had one today, and it helps,
Yeah. Now, here where I am, they do have what is called a family justice center, and it does offer therapy for parents who have been placed through trauma similar to what these CPS cases do, like bad custody cases and such. And I think for our viewers, it would be really good, to look into something like that if you're looking for like a good support group.
Yeah, it helps, the support groups help a lot, because it feels like we know what we're going through, we know what's going on with the system. We know we've all been there, so I feel like it's a good support.
And how long have you been going there?
Well, I've been doing all this stuff for about all my classes and everything for about 2 years.
Okay. That's a long time to be part of these organizations. Now, do you feel that you've built allies going through these organizations that are willing to fight for you in court, or like testing your character?
I have, because I've been doing these other classes that I've been doing for 2 years, and then I have my therapist, my DV therapist, that is wants to talk with my caseworker, and they want to know what else that the caseworker wants from me. We've covered all grounds of domestic violence. I've completed all my certificates, and they just want to know what else I could possibly do.
Right. So all of these different organizations that you're having to deal with, right? None of them are coming back and saying, oh, this woman is just so crazy. She cannot take care of her kids. She's not fit to be a mom. She's on drugs. None of them are saying that, right?
No, I can't say that, because there's one that's a therapist lady, and she's on the side of DCS. I feel like, and anything I do, she'll turn it around and say, oh, well, you're not supposed to do that. And
now, was she appointed to you by the courts?
Yes.
Like I said, same team, different places on the board.
He was, and anytime
like who's on what team, because you're either for the court or you're against the court upholding the law. Usually, it's one or the other.
She's appointed by them, because every time I say anything, she'll be like, oh, well, how's your visits going? And she's like, I said, well, I give my kids a snack for them to pick up their toys. And she's like, well, you can't do that. That's withholding food. And I'm like, excuse me, I learned that in one of my other classes. It's called a reinforcer, because my son has autism. And she just tries to use anything I say against me. Like she asked me, how do I discipline the kids? And, me and my parent aide were working on timeout. And then she's like, well, you can't be using timeout for all the kids. And anything I do, like, she just tries to, and then she'll bring it up at the CFT and make me look bad. When it's really, she doesn't even know my kids.
Yeah. And she wasn't there for the visits either, was she?
She's never been there at a visit. Nope. But for some reason,
I remember you said in the beginning of the show that the reason they were involved in your life is that somebody had written something, and the supervisor went back and said that there was a finding when there originally wasn't.
Oh no, this was recently. You know how they write like a court report, like a review for the judge?
Yes.
Well, I read that review because my lawyer sent it to me, and it said a bunch of stuff that was like not true, saying I don't understand my kids' needs. I'm not making much progress, but they're not saying all the good stuff. And then they're saying I've had like a psych eval, and putting trying to take from the psych eval and throw it in there like negative stuff. But yet they're not saying all the hundreds of certificates I've had, all the classes I've completed, my parent aid service. None of that was in there. They didn't say, hey, she's working, she has a place. They don't say the good stuff. They just want to say the bad stuff. And it just, a lot of it was lies. And I called out my caseworker, and she said her supervisor wrote it, not her.
But her supervisor wasn't there, was she?
Oh, no, this is what happened at the court. Her supervisor was there at the court, but didn't say nothing. And she wasn't at the court. But I had called her and asked her about it.
It's a lot of smoke and mirrors with CPS. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And they'll usually send you running in a circle. They'll point all the fingers at each other and just have you spinning around until you just decide to stop playing the game and go above them. Just remember, there's always somebody higher above. Hold on, let's see. Jeez.
Yeah, but it's, it's been a rough ride, and I feel like it's something I can't give up on. This is my kids.
Okay, Colette, message the Fight CPS, a Civil Rights Struggle Facebook page, and I will set up an interview. Okay, I'm sorry, Virginia, go ahead.
No, but it's just something that I feel like it's never ending. But now they're trying to put an end to it and sever my rights. But I don't understand. It's like you're fighting and you're doing all the work, but you don't get the credit.
Right. And also just let's remember the fact that we're innocent until proven guilty. That's what it's supposed to be like in these courts.
Not with them.
So what were the, what was the material change in circumstance that caused you to go for severance?
They were saying I got back with the dad. They were trying to say the dad was domestic violence. He had criminal charges on him, and they're trying to use that against me. And it has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? It's whole separate stuff.
So Christina wants to know, was there physical abuse?
No. Well, with my kids, they got abused in the foster home. Yes.
I think she's asking about before. I think she's asking about the domestic violence.
No.
So how did you come to bring out this domestic violence charge?
They were saying domestic violence because when my kids got taken, it was a police report. There was a police report, but there was nothing in it. And then a few weeks went by, my kid's father, he was locked up already for a whole different another reason, nothing to do with us. And they came and took the kids from me because I had an open case and I didn't have nowhere to live. Instead of them helping me and saying, here's some resources, we're going to help you out as a mom. And no, they took my children. And then as they said,
that's a mistake that a lot of people make.
The lady told me I'll get my kids back in 6 months if I comply. And I've got an apartment. I had 2 jobs, everything, and she lied. And another 6 months went by, another year went by, another 2 years went by. And they just,
I was lied to as well. When my kids were first taken, the very first time, they were like, oh, just give it a few days. We just have to iron some things out. Oh, just give it another week. And then, oh, give it 2 weeks. Oh, give it a couple months. And
1 day is.
Yeah. And, as a parent who had never been through that before, it was really overwhelming, because you're like every soul, every fiber in your soul is telling you, okay, my baby's going to be back next week. I can make it to next week. I can get through this long. And then you get to that point and they're like, oh, just kidding. We're not giving your kids back.
That's how they.
It's so devastating. It's so soul crushing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sick. It's sick.
It is. It is. It's sad, and if you're not built strong and stuff, it can break you. There's people that can't handle stuff like that. It's just.
There was a mother in New York a couple of years ago. This was in the juvenile court system in upstate New York. And she had her children wrongfully removed from her custody. And at the very first hearing, when they didn't give her kids back, she died in that courtroom of a heart attack. But the basis was literally she died of a broken heart. It killed her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's how
I've heard of that happening more so in older couples.
Yeah, me too.
For 40 years, and then one dies, and a month later the other one's right behind them.
Oh, but, no, that's so
sad. No, this was a mother who died of a broken heart in the courtroom. Yeah, this is not a drill, guys. This is really happening to our families.
Yeah, it happens every day too. It happens so much, and I feel like even when you put up a good fight, and you do everything they've asked, it's not good enough.
Sometimes it's not. What helped you become, I don't want to bring this too much into religion, but what helped you become closer to God?
When I started coming closer to God was I started going through a lot of things. I've been through a lot. I've had my moments where I was living in sin. The things I was going through. The sin. Like the vanity, the this, everything the world had to offer. I was there. And then a time came where like something just told me, this is it. This is time. This is the day you're going to get baptized. This is how it's going to happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect now. I think I struggle more now, now that I've been baptized and I'm getting closer with God. That's when the enemy's right there knocking on the door more. And you got to deny him every day, deny, because you got to keep putting up the fight until the end, because this is not a game, it's a serious fight for your soul. Yeah. Because we're going to go somewhere someday. It's either heaven or hell. There's no in between. There's no, oh, we're not that bad of a person. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way. It's either you're all in or you're all out. So that's what I'm scared. I fear God. I fear the person that can put my soul in hell. And God comforts, but God can also discipline.
Right.
So that's I had an eye opener, and I feel like God used my kids, to get to me, to say, you know what, Virginia, this is it, because not everybody that comes to God, you're going to have a perfect life. And that's not what it's about. You're going to go through things, because all the people in the Bible, a lot of them, they went through a lot of things. It just depends if you're going to be that strong, you're going to persevere to the end. That's what God is looking for. Because we're in this world, we live in this world, but we don't have to be partakers of it, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It just
teachings in my experience growing up as a Christian, but not to play devil's advocate, but I kind of felt the opposite way this time around with CPS. I kind of had what you described earlier, like making people go crazy. And I've said this on the show before. I kind of snapped one day. And I just could no longer contemplate even the most basic things, like, why is the sky blue? Why is there water in the ocean? Like, what is this like globe, like a round thing that spins? Like, I couldn't understand anything. And I had to slowly kind of like pull myself back together by myself. I didn't have a lot of support, which, to anybody who's going through this without a support system, I highly recommend that you do join a church, find something, find someone, anything. This is not something that I would recommend going through alone. And if you have any choice at all, don't do it. Don't go through this alone.
See, I think that's what happened with me. I didn't have a support at the time. And I reached out to God. God's there no matter where we're at or what we're going through. So you're not in it alone. You're with God. You just got to reach out to God. God hears your prayers. God hears your thoughts. God knows everything. And that's, for me, like, that's what drew me closer. I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to say, hey, why, with the purpose of things, I wanted to know more. And, there was a time where I kept hearing in my head, like, okay, now is the time, you got to stop and you got to turn from your ways and try to go the straight road, Like they say, it's a narrow road, not many can walk it. But it's the road to life. The road to death is very big and anybody can walk it. So that's why it is the way it is, It's not everybody can persevere to the end. And we don't know who those people are, but God does. But God's right here for everybody. The doors are open right now. It's not too late. If you woke up today and you have breath in your lungs, it's not too late. It's because I'm going through it on a daily basis. I'm going through it, fighting. It's a constant battle. It's a battle. And everybody sees everything going on with the virus, of this, but it's things that, are happening that people have not seen. Like, it's been going on for many years, it's a spiritual battle, but God's already has the victory. You just got to choose where you want to go and do the work. There's the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a lot of work too. It's a lot of work. Now,
It's not
how often are you seeing your little ones?
once a week,
Okay. For what, an hour, 2 hours?
4 hours.
4 hours. That's really good. That is kind of liberal visitation. So why would they be giving you 4 hours a week if their goal was severance?
They better give me four. No, I'm just kidding. They better. I don't know. I couldn't see them taking my visits away. 4 hours a week ain't that much for me. I used to see my kids every day, but I'm on them. I'm on my caseworker because my referral was up with my parent aide. So I called my caseworker. I said, "Well, who's going to do the next visit?" She's like, "Well, I don't know." Well, you better get on the ball because I'm not going to miss a visit, and you guys say you're going to make up that time when they don't.
I really like that you notice that because that's actually a problem, with a lot of these cases is that our families are just waiting and waiting and waiting for these caseworkers to let them know what's going on when we don't realize that, a lot of times we have to be the ones to take the initiative and reach out to them and hold them accountable. Email, guys, email. Emails are admissible in court. Email these people. Like, if you can, have most of your conversations over email. Text messages are not quite admissible, not really. Phone calls, you can record them. Recording laws are different in each state. You have to go through the problem of authentication, which you'd still have to use with your emails, but all you have to do is put the BITCH on a stand, or other guy, put them on a stand, show them the email after you provided the other party a copy before trial. And this is something that you would work out with your lawyer. And you say, hey, is this your email address? Can you look at this for me? Oh, would this refresh your memory? Do you remember sending this message at this time? And again, this is a way to poke holes in their credibility. You have to poke holes in their story and in their credibility.
Yeah, because I know my caseworker don't like me because I give her an email, an update, and I'm like, hey, well, what's going on? And I give her an update, what I'm doing. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Don't forget about me. This is what's going on over here. I'm doing this. And, well, what are you doing over there? What's going to help me with my next visit? I probably give her a stress
on you. And it shows how much you care as a parent as well.
Yeah, because I know when they see my message pop up, she's probably like, oh, no. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's her again. But I make sure I make myself known all the time. I give a weekly update, an email, I want to be there in their inbox, so they can say, hey, you know what?
Thank you, Corey.
She was doing what she gets to do. I call them, I email them. I'm trying to get meetings with them all the time so they can know that, hey, you know what? I'm serious. These are my kids, and they're not going to.
Yes. No, that says so much about you as a parent. And that is another point that you can bring up in court later and say, hey, look at, like, Your Honor, allow me to, bring to the stand all of this evidence, all this information. Does this look like a mother who doesn't care about her kids?
I have every evidence even from visit 1. I have all my notes from the very first visit. And it shows that my kids were sleeping through the whole visit when the foster mom was giving them sleeping medicine. So I have that ready with me. I have everything from visit 1.
So she was giving them sleeping medicine on purpose before visits?
She was giving them medicine for them to go to sleep. And I have that on record too. I have proof of the email of that.
They would be asleep during visits?
So I guess she was doing it for them to be asleep at the house because they said that they were anxious and they were crying a lot. Well, they want their mom, but you don't do that to children. I wouldn't even do that to my own kids, but yeah, the stranger is doing it and they're getting away with it. It was a lot going on when they were in the foster home, but they're with family now. But still, if they want to bring up allegations from years ago, I'm going to show them all there from the beginning, from visit 1. If they want to, I have all my proof. I've never deleted an email, anything. So I can't wait to be in court.
Good. Just remember to consult with your attorney before you guys go into that court hearing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Make sure.
Yeah, she's like,
get together
at
least.
Take a deep breath and calm down. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, meet with her a solid 2 weeks before your court date. So you guys can make sure that all the things you need to file on the court record are there. Everything that you need to serve to each of the parties is there. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I don't know what to expect as much you know, I didn't even know that the judge does a ruling after the court. I thought it was like right then and there.
The judge makes their ruling during the trial.
Oh, does he? Because somebody
Yeah.
was saying it takes like 30 days or 60 days.
In my jurisdiction,
That's what I thought.
So full disclosure, I'm not an attorney yet. I start law school officially next fall. But from my understanding, the judge usually makes his ruling while you guys are there in the courtroom. And in my jurisdiction, you actually have to wait in the courtroom on the benches in the back for them to hand you the piece of paper, which contains what the ruling was in the court trial that day. I have heard of cases where they do get the ruling later, especially during jury trials where they have to deliberate, you know.
Yeah.
And you also, a lot of people probably don't know this, you have the right to a jury trial in a lot of these proceedings.
I don't know what that is either.
It's where your trial, your family court trial would get a jury. It could vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but this is something that you talk to your lawyer about. And of course, you know, litigating in court is expensive. It costs money. But if you can get with your attorney, you can say, if you file in your motion, plaintiff demands a trial by jury, you have to get a jury trial. And you can also do voir dire. Voir dire, VOIREDIRE. Voir dire is a process when you're demanding a jury trial where you, as the complainant or the defendant even, can, you know, ask the jury questions and basically select your own jury members.
See, I didn't know that either. I feel like I could just go with what they say. Like, oh, well, now we're going to severance trial. I'm like, oh, well, what's this? You know?
And they bank on that. They bank on you guys not knowing this information. Because that's how they're able to do what they're doing.
See, like you said, he makes a ruling that day, and that's what I thought. But somebody else told me that it's 30 or 60 days. I said, wow, that's going to be a rough 30 or 60 days for me. You know, I'm going to be like, that's not right, you know?
I would confirm this with your attorney, of course, because I'm not a licensed attorney. But that doesn't sound right to me.
That's what I said, too. I'm like, what? 30 or 60 days? I would be crazy by then, you know? Because who's going to want to wait 30 or 60 days for the ruling?
Who told you this?
It was one of the ladies from one of the classes, but she did tell me she wasn't too sure because she wasn't a lawyer, but she said something about 30 or 60 days, and I'm like, wow, like, and I think I looked it up.
It can take a couple of days or maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks to make a decision. I mean, I think there is a gray area to this, but again, I probably wouldn't be the best person to tell you either. Call me back in 5 years and I can legally tell you.
Oh, man. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I try my best. So what I'll be teaching during these shows is more of like a basic fundamental teaching of the law, like really, really basic stuff. Like, you know, for example, we'll do the causes of action today. Okay. Cause I do a couple of minutes of legal education on my show every week. So causes of action, you have to have a duty. You have to have somebody who has breached that duty, and you have to have damages as a result of the breach of that duty. So those are your main causes of action. And then there are, you know, like in tort law, like a tort is a wrongdoing from one person against another. That is where a lot of these lawsuit, you know, foundations come from in the legal field, is torts. You know, what are legal torts against one another that are causes of action. So it's just a little piece today. But if you decide to start studying law, you will be learning for the rest of your life. You know, it's best to specialize. I'll be specializing in civil rights attorney. But, you know, you'll always be learning. Yet, on the other hand, law is easy enough for an average 8th grader to understand. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that we really are capable of understanding the law, but it does take several thousand hours of dedication to learning that. But what you gain in return is so much more valuable. You know, for example, you walk into a courtroom and you don't know your rights. Do you expect those people who make money off of throwing your life in jail Do you expect them to uphold your rights for you if you don't even know what those rights are? No. You walk into a courtroom not knowing your rights, you might as well not have any. And that's kind of the stand that I take on this show is, we are given so many opportunities to learn so much. And it is imperative when you're involved in one of these cases to understand what is the process of the court? What are the rules for your jurisdiction, for your state? Look up the code. Look up your state's code. Their penal code or their civil code. Look up the laws involving CPS, involving your kids, what is being, alleged against you. Look in the court orders, pay attention in the court orders to the sections of these codes that they give you. Look them up. Look up what these laws are.
I look up the words and I go through the reviews. I'm like, what does this mean? Well, what does uncontested mean? What's, I'm always looking up stuff, because if not, they don't tell me what it means and stuff, because we go in there as parents and I'm thinking, okay, well, in the beginning, I'm like, well, okay, well, what's going to happen next? And they don't tell you, hey, this is what we're going to do. They just take your kids and just, you kind of try to figure things out for yourself. And if you don't kind of learn yourself, it's kind of hard. Like, still, like, I don't know the laws, but you're going to think as a human being, they're going to do the right thing. That's not how it goes, That's not how it goes.
Unfortunately, that's how most of us parents do think when we're going through this. We're like, deep down, because like we naturally want to believe that other people have the same kind of intentions that we do. Like, hey, I'm a good person, so naturally you're probably a good person, unless you give me a reason to think otherwise.
Well, they took my kids. Well, that was right there. That was right there. Like, okay. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna see where the game goes from there.
Now, speaking of your kids, so we do have to wrap up. We live in the, technological age, and chances are your kids are probably going to come across this video at some point.
Oh.
If your kids were able to see you now, what would you want to say to them?
I want them to know that I love them and that I've been fighting for them, and that no matter what that they hear about me or somebody says about me that I don't love them, I do love them, and I want them to know that I've always fought for them and I won't give up. I'm still not going to stop fighting for them. And that I love them, and I apologize for them for going through all this, because it is my fault at the end of the day. It is, because I'm their mom. I should have protected them more from CPS.
I don't know. Unfortunately, I know that probably makes sense to you right now, and it may feel true, but that's not true at all. And the sad and very scary truth is that no matter how good of a parent you are, sometimes there is nothing that can stop CPS from coming in and taking your child. And that is the reality of the world that we live in right now.
And vengeance is God's. God sees everything. Nobody's going to get away with nothing, and there's going to be that time. But we're going through this right now, and we're like wondering, well, why does this stuff happen? That's what we think, deep down inside. I know everybody thinks, well, if God loves us, why does stuff like this happen? It's because we have to go through things, like, even when I read the Bible, there's stories of the brothers and sisters that went through so much stuff, worse, torture and all kinds of stuff. And they still, they still praise God. And that's what God's looking for inside of somebody. God sees what we don't see.
Let's hope so. That's amazing. I'm really glad that you found that.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. So how are your visits going?
They're going good. They go good until the end. My kids get real sad. They don't want to leave. And, what kid's going to want to leave their mom, And then I don't know what to tell my son. Like, okay, well, because if I tell them, oh, you're going to be home soon, they tell me I can't tell my kids that. And they try to tell me what I can and can't tell my kids. I'm like, wait a minute, these are my kids, And it's just, I try to stay strong, I try to stay strong because I see it in my kids. Like, they want this to be done with already.
Yeah. Yeah. I can understand that. And they would tell me the same thing in my visits. And did they ever tell you that you couldn't cry in front of your children?
They tried telling me stuff like that in the beginning, and They did. Don't
Or like,
cry.
you can't cry to them, or you can't hold them when they're crying. You're just enabling the behavior, or you crying is traumatizing them. Like, they want you to just act like this like inhumane robot.
Like it's all no biggie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously to desensitize what they know is so morally wrong.
Yeah.
But Virginia, I would like to thank you so much for being on our show tonight.
Thank you.
Is there any advice that you would like to give our viewers who are going through CPS cases like yourself that you would have liked to have known before?
Just don't give up fighting for your children. And, I just think that, you got to be the person for speaking up for your children, because no one else is going to. But trust in God, put your faith in God, because that's the only way, any of us are going to get out of here, is God. God sees all, knows all. And that's it. That's what I did. And my trust is still in God, regardless of the CPS workers against me, the attorney general, anybody, God's stronger than all of them. But, it just be the advocate for your children, do what you can fast too, because there's only so much time before they want to rip the kids and say, oh, well, now the kid's been in the system so long, now we can't take them from over here. So that's what, we got to do, and keep
Even
everything.
though oftentimes they're the ones dragging out the case.
Yeah, they do on purpose. And, keep documents of everything, emails of everything, pictures. Take pictures. She's like, what's going on?
What's her name?
Lady.
Lady?
Lady.
Oh, I had a dog named Lady. She was so cute. Hello.
Yeah, she's so cute.
I ended up getting an emotional support animal during my case.
For support.
The one that you saw earlier, Mr. Bob. He's over there right now.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the dog you heard barking in the background earlier. That was my troublesome guy.
Cute.
Oh. Well, everybody, our show has come to an end tonight, and I want to thank you all for watching. And Virginia, thank you again for sharing your story. And please feel free to join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's Fight CPS, a Civil Rights Struggle. We also have CPS current events every Monday at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Virginia, thank you so much again for joining us tonight.
God bless you, Amanda. Thank you.
God bless you too. All right. Good night, everyone.